Welcome back to Supremely Black Podcast. This is your host, D. Rose. Now, this is a follow-up story with the Goon Squad that we had talked about early last year that involved two black men getting assaulted by the 6 white officers that are pictured. Michael Jenkins and Eddie Terrell Parker were the ones that were assaulted by this Goon Squad, and they will cover it more in the video that I will show. These two men were assaulted, right? So it began by a racial call that led to saying that there were 2 black men standing in a white woman's house in Braxton. So this group of people, cowards, burst into a home without a warrant, assaulted Jenkins and Parkers with stun guns, sex toys, and other objects. One of the officers actually fired a shot in an attempt to execute Jenkins. However, he ended up surviving. So now you will get to see what the sentencing is. It has been delayed. 2 of the officers have been charged, what they were covered with in the video. Let me know what you all think with this. Do you think that they were charged with the right amount of time, or do you think this was light sentencing? Keep in mind, it's only been 2. I will definitely be following up on the story once the other 4 people are charged.
Day for torturing 2 black men last year. So far, a federal judge sentenced Hunter Elward to 20 years in prison. Jeffrey Middleton will be sentenced this afternoon. The rest of the men will follow over the next couple of days.
Now, these men pleaded guilty in August to a slate of state and federal charges, and prosecutors say that the officers nicknamed themselves the Goon Squad because of their willingness to use excessive force and not report it. NBC News correspondent Antonia Hilton joins us now. Antonia, I mean, frankly, these charges are disgusting, and it's something that, unfortunately, some people didn't realize were even happening or forgot that this even happened, and it's not quite as rare as we think. What are the charges specifically?
You know, you're right to point that out, because one of the conversations happening in Mississippi right now is that for many black elders there, this feels like a relic of what they were hoping was a bygone era, something from the 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s in the South that shouldn't be happening today. But what happened that night in January of 2023 is that these 5 former deputies and 1 police officer entered this home, no warrant, no evidence that anything was happening there. And they proceeded to torture these men for hours using food, at one point a sex toy, and threatening an execution. And that's how one of the men, Michael Jenkins, ended up being shot in the mouth by one of the officers, who's the officer who has been sentenced to 20 years. So this is heinous, doesn't even really describe how awful all of this is. And on top of all of what I just described, they then tried to plant evidence, guns, drugs on these men. And it took months for these 2 victims, Michael Jenkins and Eddie Parker, to be believed. And so, you know, there's relief that we're here now. But there's another world in which that actually wouldn't have been the case.
It's sick.
Somehow Jenkins and Parker did survive. What are they saying about these sentencings?
Well, they are pushing for the maximum sentences. And it's not just the 2 of them. It's actually an entire black community in the Jackson area rising up here and saying, you really need to send a message now. And, you know, we have 20 years for 1 officer. That officer is facing the most serious charges because of having shot Jenkins in the mouth. But they're hoping something very similar is coming for the other 5 men involved in this. And now, on top of all of that, the local DA is going to have to review all kinds of cases in association with the Goon Squad. So think about this. You know, there's the story of just these 6 guys, but really there is a bigger process here that could take years, undoing all the harm that was likely done.
And how many of those victims were not believed, right? Incredible.
All right, Antonia Hilton, thank you so much for your reporting. We appreciate it.